Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my Sunday live stream where we talk about photography and I like to catch up on see how everybody's doing and what I've been up to. And of course, if you have any questions about the OM Systems cameras, Olympus, I'll do my best to answer them here for you as well live. But I hope everyone's doing well. I know my my live streams, I've kind of cut way back on those and I've been dedicating more time to doing the videos and tutorials again. So I hope you guys are enjoying that. Let me know in the comments if that works or um, should I ramp up the live streams again? Because I can go either way, honestly. Because I enjoy doing the live streams and um, and just seeing everyone and just talking about what we all have in common, and that is photography. Um, and as usual, I just kind of come in, sit down, turn on the camera, unscripted. Don't even know what I'm going to talk about today. I just combed my hair and put a shirt on and said, okay, let's go. But that's kind of how I roll. And honestly, that's how a lot of my videos go when I don't have any specific questions from you guys about, how to do something on a camera. I'll try and think about a topic that might be of interest, like I did the super control panel video. I haven't done one of those in years since I think the EM10 Mark II, Um, but yeah, Seraphin says it seems like the YouTube is pushing live streams now. They've been sort of promoting them for many years now. Kind of when they first started doing live streams or making live streams available, there was a big push that this was going to be the way to go on YouTube. And I was a little behind the eight ball on that as usual, but um, I did them because I thought it was important to connect with your viewers in real time, and so that people can just see you as you are, right? Unscripted, and um, there's really, this is about the closest you can get to just being here with me, sitting next to me, right, or hanging out with friends. And but anyhow, the live streams, they're kind of a different animal on YouTube. They're I don't feel like they're, at least not for my mojo, right? I'm not, because I really like the live streams that like Gavin Hoey does time to time, where he's just live and doing photography, right, and setting up things. I mean, I could do something like that, but it would be, I don't know if you guys want me to do something like that where I just sit down, or not sit down, but set up something in my living room or dining room and do some live flash like Gavin does, because what he does is amazing. I really love his flash tutorials and when he does them live, and it's not anything that I couldn't do because he makes it so simple, right? It's easy to copy. And now that I have some lighting products, as you guys saw, I did a video review last week, and not that I really needed a lighting product so much. I mean, I need them, or that there's not a ton of interest for video lighting products on my channel. But it's one of those videos where I like to call it, you kind of, as a creator, content influencer, YouTuber, you have to kind of pay your dues a little bit and start building relationships with these different manufacturers, right? So you can get sort of the more interesting, bigger stuff. And so that video was one of those kind of videos, right? And it's a good light. It was like that kit. I said in the video it's $199, but I was checking the last couple days. It's been on sale for like $169, and that is really a good deal. And it's as good as any other light, if not better in some cases, for the money, right? And they asked me to do some more lighting videos for LED lighting. So I was thinking, rather than using flash like Gavin Hoey does, is use LED lighting, because the LED lighting, $169, and you get the stand and softbox and the light. Uh, that's cheaper than a flash. You know what I mean? And for indoor portrait type work, it's just as good, uh, and better in many ways to use LED lighting for portrait work, because what you see is what you get right away. You don't have to do test shots as much, right? You don't get the inconsistency in flash to flash. Uh, you don't have to do a lot of things. Use light, use those light meters in some cases, like Gavin does. Not, and that's a big argument sometimes. Is, do you need to use a light meter or not? And I think it's better to have one than not have one. But you can get by without one, right? Is my kind of feeling. If you want to buy one, uh, it does make things a little easier and the workflow a little faster, especially if you're working with multiple flashes at different distances and stuff. But once you kind of got it nailed down, your setup, right? You set up your light 5 feet from your target, or 2 meters. You have the same soft box and the same flash. Set your power settings and aperture, and you do a couple test shots, and you're dialed in, and you're good for every shot after that, right? um, but if you're in the field and you have to work in conditions where you're not sure what the room lighting is like, the ambient light, all of that, then a light meter can really save a little bit of time, right? Oh, thank you, Marcia. I'm not anywhere near as good as Gavin. That guy is amazing. He really has. I mean, I guess he's about the same age I am, but he has the energy of somebody half my, when I was much younger, like in my 20s. Uh, my God, I'm like so laid back. I've been kind of a laid back person my whole life, right? Uh, and but Gavin, man, he has so much energy. Him and like Joe Edelman, uh, for people that are my age or maybe a little older even, I think their energy level is like half their age. I don't know how they do it. Marcus says, I love your photo walk and your thought process and composition. Okay, I can do more of those. Now that the weather's a little warmer, I'm a little more motivated to go out, to do some more photo walks. And I was thinking about doing one. I got an amazing epiphany about the light metering or metering system on the Olympus cameras. You know how they have the spot high and spot low metering? And I'm going to do a video on this, so you guys kind of get first, you get sort of a preview or spoiler, right? That's the word. You're going to get a spoiler, but basically, that spot high and spot low is actually really, really useful when you want to do ETTR, like exposed to the left or exposed to the right. And I was really, I've covered spot high, spot low in another video when I talked about metering, and I kind of explained it in a technical way, right? It's basically under or overexposing your shot by 2 stops, but it's actually more than that. And I've been meaning to get out in the field to sort of do some examples and build a video explaining how to use that feature to do ETTR. And it's very intuitive, right? You just do spot high on the sky. But I want, you know how I am, right? I'm going to go into a little bit more detail, and that should be a great video. My only challenge is finding a landscape, or things that you would normally do ETTR type photography, and find something interesting to take a picture of, right? And and of course the weather has to be nice. I need to up my game a little bit on the photography, what I show on my videos, because what I show on my videos, it's like I'll go out that day, take some pictures, and that's what you're going to see in the video, right? And they're not particularly, they're not great shots. They're just, more of demonstrating whatever it is I'm talking about, whether I'm talking about a lens or I'm talking about a technique. it's like, okay, here's a scene. If I wanted to expose for this, bang, bang, this is what you do. Or if I wanted to compose this particular scene, these are the things, that kind of thing, right? Uh, but I don't give much thought to the scene itself, right? Like, is this going to be one of those amazing shots, right? Because so many videos you watch, they've already scouted the location. They found like this great scene they want to do a picture of, um, and and then some people just live in amazing places or go to amazing places all the time, like Thomas Heaton. Everywhere he goes, you just point your camera almost in any direction, and you got this beautiful scenery, right? That's one of the things about, I think, the UK, or that whole area there, the European, that all those countries, is you drive a couple of hours in any direction, and you could be at this amazing location, or you can be in a different country, and it's just not like that here in the US, man. You could drive a couple hours and you're only like 20 miles from your house because of traffic, at least where I live. uh I mean, I've had commutes. It's like a typical commute for me, like when I'm doing a photo job, is 25 to 50 miles, right, in that range. That's just kind of how big this area is in the metro area. When I get a photo job, I have to go where the site is, obviously, right? It won't come to me. But those, 25 miles should be like a 30-minute drive, because virtually all highway, right? We have a really good highway system, but it's just so congested. And I have to budget, 2 minutes for every mile, to get somewhere. So if it's a 25-mile hike, it's like I have to budget at least 1 hour, but I usually budget an hour and a half so I can get there a little early. And if I get there half an hour early, that's okay. I can do the exterior shots, because I do, architectural, real estate type stuff. Because you don't know how the lighting's going to be, because I might be on site for an hour, I might be on site for 2 hours if they want to do video. And so I'll do shots when I get there of the exterior if I get there early. And then when I come out, when I'm done with the job, if the lighting is changed for the better, I'll do the exterior again, right? But anyhow, yeah, finding locations and scenes where I live now, maybe I'm just a little bit jaded, right? Maybe it is really beautiful around here, and I look at it and I'm like, well, I've seen that 1,000 times. It's not interesting to me anymore, but maybe you guys find it interesting. It's hard for me to say, right? But anyhow, so that's what I'm planning. My next video, or not, maybe not the very next video, but one of my videos will be about the metering system on the Olympus cameras. And it doesn't matter if it's your EM10 Mark II or OM1, or even older. I'll have to see if my older cameras, well, I have some older Olympuses than the EM10, and see if they are functionally the same. Because if they are, it's going to be a great video for land, I think mostly for landscape type photography. Okay, let me catch up on a few chat things. Maybe there's some questions here. But yeah, it's good to see everybody. Plato, Dave, John, John Allen, John Follows, awesome. Marsha, Marcus, the great Vanzini, as always. You like the lives and the photo walks. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I got this bug to go out and just take pictures all the time. Because since, I had that slump about a year ago, right? It was last year, probably about this time. I had this slump where, everybody gets into a rut, right, in their photography at one point. But I'm out of that now, and I hopefully for good, because I'm feeling so good when I go out and take pictures. I'm like, yes, I got this one. I got this, I mean, and I'm not saying they're great pictures, but they are certainly uh, ones that I'm very happy with, that I accomplished and got something in the I captured what I wanted to capture in the way I wanted to capture it, and it came out pretty much exactly how I liked it. Or I could see, it'd be easy to fix whatever issues I had with it. Um, oh yeah, my Star Trek mug. Yeah, I thought I'd bring this out just for old time's sake. It's still here. It's got a crack in it now. Well, two cracks. But yeah, this was a Christmas gift. Along with it came with a plate. I don't know where the plate came with a plate too. I think this is from Undiscovered Country, or one of the movies. They use this mug, so this is like a prop replica. It's a legit item. It's a real coffee mug. But my God, showing my age. Let me tell you, I went out to see my sister and her brother, my brother-in-law, last night, and I was trying to explain to them, because we were watching. I was talking. Is Dave Tellett here? I I was talking about Dave Tellett with them yesterday. Because Dave lives nearby me, and I was talking about the some of the Jerry Anderson, and because he's a little bit of a sci-fi guy too, right? And they're like, "Who's Jerry Anderson?" I said, "Well, he's kind of like Gene Roddenberry." And they're like, "Who's Gene Roddenberry?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, seriously? Uh, you don't know who that is? How about what's his name? Spelling. The guy that made Charlie's Angels and stuff." And they're like, "No idea." They're only 7 years younger than me, and they have no idea who they were. I was just I could see maybe not knowing Jerry Anderson, but they didn't even know the TV shows that he created, like Space 1999. I think that was a Jerry Anderson, and Firebirds, and what's the other one? UFO. It's like, nope, never heard of him. Are you serious? You've heard of Star Trek, right? That's Gene Roddenberry. Anyhow, um, I don't know why I got into that. Okay, Marcus says, just curious, why are you still keeping your Lightroom subscription when you have Photolab 6? How do you decide which one to use? Okay, 99% of my photos, I'm going to use Photolab 6. The 1%, I actually don't use Lightroom so much, is I use the Photoshop. Because Photoshop, I can do layering. And when I do my commercial photography, I have to do a lot of layering. I blend, and not just HDR, right? It's a little bit of HDR, not so much, but I blend flash photography, ambient light photography, and I do a lot of light blending. And a lot of times not a lot, but sometimes I have to do, like virtual staging, like if the property's empty and I have to put furniture in, things like that. You have to use Photoshop, something that can layer, select objects, and do things very quickly. So that's why I keep the subscription, and for me, it's a business write-off anyway. I don't have to look at it as 120. For me, it's 120 or $125 a year. I can look at it as a tax write-off anyway. So it's a little different from my perspective than, say, your average enthusiast amateur, right? So that's why I keep it, is because of the ability to layer objects and blend photos and do layer masking, and being able to select objects and move them, reshape them. Like reshaping, for example, like like if I take a picture of a conference room and it has a giant screen, right? Giant what do you call those, flat panel TVs and things. I'll overlay like a picture of the property in the screen, so that it just gives the overall image a little bit more polish. So that's why I keep it. But if I didn't do that, if I didn't do professional work, I'd probably still keep it because I really like the creative choices that you can make in Photoshop because of the layering and things that you really can't do in anything else. I mean, Nick Collection comes close to doing a lot of creative things, but Nick Collection is more of an artsy fartsy kind of thing. Uh, you have to be one of those creative types to really appreciate everything it offers, and it's a great package. But for me, it's not my go-to, right? I'm not going there to convert black and white or because they have the Silver Effects Pro, which it's known for, uh, which is awesome, right? If you want to quickly make some, because the presets, they quickly change things. But ultimately, I don't really care for a lot of that kind of editing where you overlay light leaks and old paper. I mean, sometimes it's kind of nice, and it's nice to have if you're into that kind of thing. uh but yeah, that's the Silver Effects Pro. And then the other things like the Visa and the HDR software is really good, though, much better than Lightroom. So if you're into HDR, it's probably the best that I'm aware of. I haven't tried other things that are not geared towards HDR but do HDR. For example, PT GUI can blend HDR images, but that's a different kind of software. That's more for doing panoramas and 360s, right? I'm thinking about getting it though because I don't offer 360 tours uh, for my properties, or for as one of my services, I should say, because there's just no demand. If once I quote them a price for the property, for photos, virtual tour, video, uh, virtual staging, they're like, no, just give me the photos because that's the cheapest thing, right? Uh, and videos, I do about 50% now. Um, there was a window where everything I did a video for almost everything, but now it's down to about 50%. People are not finding the video uh, as useful. They only offer the video because their client wants it, and but in a practical terms, it doesn't seem to really do anything to help sell the property because I do primarily commercial, right? So seeing a video of the property is not that critical, um, because whoever buys the property, 99% they gut it and refit it to whatever business that they're going to move into. There is very, very rare that the times that I do video, it's usually because it's a working office and they're selling the business as a whole, right? They're not just selling the property, they're selling it as a business. This is a medical facility, or this is a dentist's office, or this is a laundromat, or this is a gas station. They're selling it as the business is set up for, because the zoning and licensing and equipment is all there already, so it just makes sense. And that's when I do videos, right? uh but if it's just an empty space or an office space that's going to be gutted, that's universal, right? The demand or request for video on those is a lot less. I used to do them all the time, but now the agents are like, they only do it when the client wants them to do it, not because it helps sell the property. What sells the property really is basically, they just say is a class A, class B, class C type building, right? And then let me see this floor plan and a few pictures to see the condition, right? Exterior, they want to see what street it's on, how busy is the traffic, the parking, commercial stuff, right? Uh, but, doing a video, there's no point. Anyhow, that's why I keep Photolab 6. I went off on a big tangent there. or that's why I keep Lightroom, because of the Photoshop element. The cataloging and things I've kind of gotten away from. I know that's been sort of a hard thing for a lot of people to break away from, is the cataloging feature of Lightroom, because if you've been using it for a long time, you're pretty well and you've been using that effectively, it's hard to break away from that, right? But for me, I just use Adobe Bridge and use more of a hierarchical type of organizing way of my photos, which I did a video on, by date, by day, by subject, that kind of thing. I don't really need to rely on a keyword type structure anymore, which is what basically Lightroom is. It's more of a database relational type. I don't know the exact technical terms, but it's more relational type searching and cataloging versus I just do a hierarchy, right? By date, by day, years, etc. Anyhow, another vote for live photo walks and more live streams. Okay, from the great Vanzini. I was talking to somebody about something about the Great Gatsby. I never read that. I was like, the Great Gatsby? No, is that some magician or what? And I think it came up some conversation about, I was looking at a great blue heron or a great white egret, or the great, those kind of things, right? Great white shark. It's like, how do you get that title, the great? Um, because I could do that, right? Rob Trek the Great, or the Great Rob Trek. Just doesn't have quite the same bell ring as the great blue heron or great white shark, but yeah. Anyway, how do you like? I don't know if this is directed at me. I haven't. This is not a camera I've gotten recently. I love that camera though. I don't use it hardly at all except for making videos. It's my I have it right here. I use it for the top down view of when I do my videos. But it's really, if I only had that camera to use for photography and video, it's perfectly fine. It's not like anybody would notice any difference in the quality of my images, or the only thing it really can't do well is sports action wildlife, right? But anything else, that camera is top notch, well built, weather sealed, excellent image quality. Every feature you could want from Olympus or OM systems. Because it has the high res, live comp, focus stacking. It has everything. That camera has everything. Came out like 100 years ago, and it has everything. The 16 megapixel sensor is awesome, especially if you combine it with Photolab 6 and use that deep prime. You don't have to worry about noise at all. It just polishes your images like glass. It's amazing. And it has the mic jack if you want to do video, and the flip. I mean, that's why I made that video a couple of years ago. The Mark II series, I think, was sort of the pinnacle of Olympus, right? Now OM Systems has the OM1. I hope they improve from there. It's a fantastic camera, but I don't want that to be their pinnacle camera, right? Like they came out with the OM1, then everything after that has just been iterations, right? Or minor upgrades. Because that's what the Mark III series is, right? They're just minor upgrades. The M10 series actually was some minor downgrades, right? In some ways. But the M5 Mark II to the M5 Mark III, arguably the M5 Mark III is a much better camera, but in practical terms, if you look at it from a very pragmatic standpoint, it's not much difference between the two cameras. EM1 Mark II and EM1 Mark III. It's not a lot of difference, because you can talk about the face detect and focusing system has been improving over time, certainly with the OM1. But anyhow, the EM5 Mark II is you can buy them used for like, I guess, $400 or $500. I haven't looked at the used market for that thing yet, but if you're thinking about EM10 Mark II versus EM5 Mark II, get the EM5 Mark II, hands down. Because of the weather sealing and additional features that it has. The high-res shot mode, the focus stacking. It has a few more bells and whistles, but the weather sealing and the build quality, it's a premium build camera. And Puncho Puco Web Solutions, good morning. And John follows. You got a new Zuiko 100 to 400. Needs a bit of care using it, but birding shots, yeah. It's a very sharp lens. It's sharper than the 75 to 300, which is sort of the other super zoom they have. Not as good as the 300 f4 Pro, obviously, but yeah, it's a great lens. Dave, Dave, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, or not Dave Teller, but the other one, Dave. David. Why? He runs the photo club that I'm in. My brain is slipping. Oh, thank you so much, Lauren. That's awesome. Lauren dropped $2 for me. I appreciate that. Just want to say thank you for all your videos you put out. Hope to see you one day oh, you're local to me. That's awesome. Yeah, come on out. I'm going to go out this weekend. I don't know where it is. I'll have to look. Oh, didn't mean to click on this, but it says E6 Vlogs did a video recently about ordinary stuff in his own neighborhood. Amazing photos of everyday scenes. Nothing exotic. Oh, yeah. I have to watch it. I like E6 Vlogs. Anthony's here. Good to see you. What's the difference between bracketing and HDR? Usually it's the intent of why you're doing bracketing versus HDR. HDR is very specific, right? Your intent is to combine bracketed images together to create a high dynamic range scene. Bracketing can have multiple purposes. It's the concept. If you're talking about exposure bracketing, right? The concept's the same, but exposure bracketing typically, you're doing it for HDR, but you could be doing it for other reasons, right? For like in my case, I'll bracket plus or minus 2 EV when I'm doing my work. And then I'll usually end up picking the plus 2 EV, but sometimes I'll pick the normal EV. And then sometimes I need all three, not because I'm doing HDR, but I'll do a subset of HDR, like exposure blending manually in Photoshop. Like I talked about before about layering. So my intent is not to use all three bracketed shots. I'll do 3 to 5 bracketed shots depending on the scene. Usually 3 is enough 99% of the time. And then I usually end up only using 1. But sometimes I need the -2 bracketed shot to blend in with the +2, but not like HDR where it just smashes everything together. With exposure blending, you're using layering and selectively selecting areas that you want to use from the -2 EV and areas you want to use from the +2. And that's so bracketing just gives you, if you look at it this way, bracketing is kind of like the raw images and HDR is the JPEG, right? So HDR, everything's baked in, and you really can't change it, assuming you did HDR in camera. But with the bracketed shots, you can separate everything and manipulate each individual shot the way you want it, if you want to, if that's your intent. So that's the main difference. Is what's your end game? What's the intent of the bracketing? Is if the intent of bracketing is to do HDR, then that's HDR. The intent of bracketing is, like in my case, is to possibly exposure blend or do safe. They also have safety shots where safety shots usually you do plus or minus 1 EV. HDR you normally do plus or minus 2 EV, and plus or minus 1 EV is just to kind of do safety shot, because cameras meterings can be off a little bit, right? So you want to do plus or minus 1 to kind of get the most optimal exposure, and pick the most optimal exposure from plus or minus 1 or 0. HDR you do plus or minus 2 to capture as much dynamic range as possible. And the EM10 focus peaking only works properly when Keystone function is deactivated. Can you prove that? I'd have to, I think that's true, because you can't like combine things sometimes, but let me see if I can do that with, I wonder. Let me see if this comes up. Oh, I can't do it with it on the, I can't do it with it on the HDR thing. I don't have to use the M10. I just have to use, because the M10, I'm actually using it right now for the live stream. This is my webcam now. But I think that is the case. You can't combine keystoning and focus peaking. So let me put this in the manual mode. Let me get it off an art filter. I love this PEN-F. I bought this for my 50th birthday as a gift to myself. Gives you an idea how old I am now, right? It's gonna be 7 years I've had this camera. Whew. Still works day I bought it, as well as the day I bought it, I should say. All right, let's see if I can remember. I rarely use focus peaking and stuff, but go into D menu, display, scroll down, and peaking settings, red, normal. Okay, image brightness off. And then keystoning, I think, is in the shooting menu, right? Yeah, so turn that on. And then go into manual focus. Oops, I got to turn focus peaking on. So let's assign that to a button. Make it function 1. Seriously? It's my eyes. How come peaking's not in the button menu? That can't be right. Peaking is a standard button. I sign it to buttons all the time. There's magnify, keystone, exposure, test, MF, preview. Let me turn off keystoning. Maybe that's why it's not. Wow. If it disables, I'm sorry, I'm just thinking out loud. Now if I go into the button menu, there's peaking. And then if I go to keystoning, oh, that's interesting. If you turn on keystoning, focus peaking just disappears off the button menu. And if I turn keystoning on, I wish I could show you the screen because, well, I guess that's why I have this here, right? do it the old school way. Now it's upside down because I flip this in post normally. Let's see. There, it's upside down, but let's see if I go to keystoning and I turn this off, right? And then I go to button menu. You see peaking is right there, right? But if I go to keystoning and turn this on, go back to the button menu, this button's turned off and you can't do peaking. And then when I try to select it, it's not there. Man, learned something new today. So if I turn keystoning off, go back to the button menu. Let's see. Peaking is right here. Bang. Whoops. So peaking. Let's go and turn. Sorry about that, the battery. Give me a second. All right. So, yeah, so I turned keystoning on. Go back to the button menu. And now peaking is gone. And it's not even one of the selections. So there's your proof. There's your proof. Wow. And it's going to be the same on the M10 Mark II, right? Because I think it's the same TruePic processor. I have to see if that's true on the OM1. Interesting. So let me assign a button to peaking. Focus bracketing. So let's see if this is true on the OM1. I'm upside down. Anyhow, need my cover. Okay. So button settings, button function. I have assigned the ISO to peaking. And God, where would they put keystoning? I would imagine it's in here. Keystone on. Oh, wow. Peaking is off. It's still true on the OM1. So that's something that hasn't been. That's true for the OM1 as well. You can't do keystoning and focus peaking at the same time. Awesome question. I learned something new. Thanks. Thanks for that. Let's see. Thunderbirds are a go. Yeah, Thunderbirds. I don't know why I said Firebirds. Didn't he have one Firebirds too? The Firebirds too. Jerry Anderson, or was that somebody else? Did I watch the most? No, I don't have Disney. I hear it's awesome though. I think now that all 10 seasons are done, I might get the 30-day free thing and just watch it and then cancel if I can. And then I'm wondering, do I need a dry box for my lenses and cameras? I normally just keep them all in camera bags. Yes. I mean, if your cameras are generally in a controlled, if your house is like, central AC, like you have a normal house, not like my house, but if you have a normal house, uh, and it's constantly, you're either using AC or heat and you rarely open your windows where the humidity is controlled, you probably can get away without using a dry box. Like my buddy Walter, his house is always exactly like whatever temperature they set it at, 72 degrees. That's it, year round, right? Windows are never open. He's fine. But my house is, I got my back door open right now, and it's the humidity in here is 80% right now in this room. And my dry box is at 41%. So yeah. So it really depends on the conditions of your house, right? I guess. Or the conditions that you're in. Why is this? No, anyway. But that is a very subjective opinion. It's not a professional opinion. I can only tell you from, well, I wouldn't even say it's subjective. I would say it's anecdotal. My buddy Walter has never had any problems, and his house is controlled, right? My house is not, and I've gotten mold on my lenses. So I bought a dry box to prevent that. So do I think there's any hope for a new camera this time next year that is around 34 megapixels with the same body? I seriously doubt it. We have to be at 33, 34 to technically to be able to achieve 8K video, right? But the interviews that I've seen from OM Systems, like they went to some trade show. I forget. I think it's Imaging Resource does the interviews with OM Systems, maybe Petapixel, one of those guys, right? They do. They interview OM Systems when they show up at a show, and the impression I got was that they are concentrating more on getting better quality images and more features than they are increasing the megapixels, right? So like the OM1 with the new sensor, BSI stacked, plus the new processing and some features, that's their focus, not so much increasing megapixels, because they certainly had an opportunity to increase the megapixels on the OM1, but they decided to focus on image quality and features, right? Bells and whistles, than increasing megapixel count. So I don't see it, if it's not a priority for them, because they certainly could do it if they wanted to, right? But it's not a priority for them just to get higher megapixels. Their priority is on improving the image quality that they can get out of the current 20 megapixels or whatever sensor they decide to go with. If they think they can achieve the same quality and features at 33 megapixels, they'll do it. But if they have to compromise the feature set and image quality, they're not going to do it. That's the impression I got from the interview that I read. And I need a yeah, me too. I'm thinking about it. I'm gonna have to correspond with Marco a little bit. I'm looking at the new. I saw your live stream with the new AMD. I'm talking to Marco. Marco has a great YouTube channel if you're into computer stuff. Hot Hardware. But I watched your live stream with the announcement of the AMD 79 series, right? Their 16 core, their new one, and it's beating Intel in a lot of cases, right? Now, the focus seemed to be on gaming and stuff, but a lot of that translates to content creators, right? Because we're creating media. But so I'm debating the 7945HX in a laptop or going desktop so I can get all the wattage, right? Because, in a laptop, you're kind of limited to wattage, like less than half probably what you could do in a desktop, if not more. And basically, wattage is what improves your performance when it comes down to it, right? All things being equal, if you have more power, you can get more performance out of your CPU and GPU. So I'm so happy with my 8-core 4900HS, but I'm using the low power version. I think that's what the S stands for, right? Stands for not super, but stands for something efficient. Basically, it's a low power version of their other chips for laptop, very compact, because it's a 14-inch laptop. And there's a lot of hoo-ha about the Apple M1 or M2 Pro. People are finding the performance of that pretty amazing for photo editing and video editing. And I just can't be tempted by Apple. If you guys have known me a long time, I'm not buying an Apple. And it's a purely personal reason. It's got nothing to do with the quality or performance of their products. But I have a personal problem with them since like 1982 that I just can't get over it. Anyhow, and I've only actually purchased one Apple product in my whole life. And I was forced to because of a particular app that I needed. They did not make that app for Android, and probably they still don't. I haven't checked. But I bought an iPad Pro a couple of years ago before the M1 came out, and I just use it to check my email and stuff mostly. But anyhow, I bought it specifically for a particular app that I needed to use. And Ron Murray says, "Hi, Rob. You have mentioned the Olympus FL-LM3 flash, the little one that came." Yes, I have mentioned it. Part 2. Sorry. Is the FL-LM3 flash compatible with the M1? Yes, it is. It works fine. How reliable is the weather sealing? That's not something I can really answer. Even anecdotally, because I don't really go out in bad weather. But the consensus is of all the weather sealing cameras out there, Olympus is the best. That's all I can tell you. uh, there was a test done a couple of years ago on the EM1 Mark III, I believe, and it outperformed the other camera systems in terms of weather sealing. And Olympus, as far as I know, is the only one, or OM System is the only one that actually gives an IP rating to their weather sealing. So they quantify it in an official way. It's not to say that other cameras wouldn't also meet that standard, the IP rating standard, but Olympus is the only one that actually publishes it that I know of. And yeah, I think the consensus is it's very reliable, but I can't tell you from experience. Maybe someone else can chime in. And then Marcia says, the new improvements to Lightroom, I also use other programs, Neo, Topaz, etc., because they forced me to use my little gray cells. Yeah, that new Lightroom AI denoise is really good. It's I would say not as good as, and I'm going to share with you, it's not as good as DxO Pure Raw in my opinion. Not as good as DxO's Photolab 6 Elite, and certainly Pure Raw 3 by extension. But I did put out a survey. Let's see if I can make this larger. So let's talk about a couple of surveys I did here. That's too big, right? Let me shrink it down so you can see the. What I didn't know was that if you don't vote, you can't see these numbers. But the question was, have you tried Lightroom's AI denoise? How does it compare to Topaz and Pure Raws? And 54% said not as good as Topaz or Pure Raw, so it's still worth getting Topaz or Pure Raw. 28% has said it works great, and then 18%. So it's 50-50 basically, right? That's so for those of you that did not vote but were curious about the results, this is the results. And then there's some comments in here as well. I guess some more feedback. I've read all these. I just don't remember what anybody said. Yeah, I just posted the results. We were at 49 votes, so it didn't change much from 40. So not a lot of people voted. It's a very small sample, right? It's only like 70 or 80 votes. But I tried it. And I found it to be really good, but not as good. Is it worth it to buy? My opinion would be it's probably not worth it to buy a third-party app unless there's something specific about that app that Lightroom does not do. For example, Topaz also works with different file types, whereas Lightroom only works with RAW. Topaz and DxO have drag and drop batch file type capability, whereas Lightroom, you have to catalog everything first, then select the files from the catalog or your thumbnails in Lightroom. So the workflow is different, but it might be better for you, that workflow, right? So there's different reasons to choose a third-party app, not because you need better performance for the denoising, but maybe because of the workflow, right? So there's there's different reasons to buy third-party apps, maybe not just for its headline feature, but for the other subsidiary features that improve your workflow. And workflow, when you're doing this for business, right, as if this is your job, workflow is just as important as the quality of the output. So for me, that's why I actually process. Let me back up. I actually process all of my images in Photolab 6 and export them so that I can use them in Photoshop. So technically, I'm still using Photolab 6 100% of the time. But now that I tried using only Lightroom, denoise, and Photoshop, like I didn't do any of the editing in Photolab 6. So this was the first time I've gone back to using Lightroom for my professional work. Because I've been using Photolab 6 to edit everything. Then I would I would do all my manipulation in Photoshop. But this is the first time since I've gotten Photolab 5, I really transitioned completely, and Photolab 6. But anyhow, it was fine. It was slow. It felt slow. I don't know. But the workflow was a little easier because everything's in the Adobe ecosystem, right? So even though the results were not as good, because Photolab 6 definitely gives me better quality results. But even though the results were not as good using the Lightroom with the AI denoise and then going into Photoshop like I normally do, the workflow is better. And for the kind of images that I deliver to my clients, the difference in quality is not that much. It's not noticeable at all to the client. They'll never know the difference. But for my personal images, the images that I go out and do my photo walks and I capture, I don't need Photoshop and Lightroom. I just use DxO products. And because the quality is definitely better out of DxO, in my opinion, than anything I've ever done in Lightroom. I'll have to try again because it's not just the denoising in Lightroom, but it's also the optics module, the sharpening, and the workflow of using the control points versus using the masking in Lightroom. I just find the workflow for editing images better or easier in Photolab 6 than I do in Lightroom at this point. And because I was able to break away from that cataloging system, it doesn't phase me at all to move to Photolab. It's an easier transition for me than a lot of people. A lot of people, that's the Achilles heel of Lightroom, right? Is that cataloging system. If you're baked into that and committed to that, it's hard to get out. But anyhow, I agree. They are definitely. I don't see a need for most people to get a third-party denoising app because the Lightroom one is really good as it is. And says, I'm thinking of buying either a Lumix GX8 or a PEN-F specifically for holidays with the 12-60 lens. What's my thoughts? Either camera, honestly. I can't remember the GX8 exactly. I think it's the one just before the GX9, if that isn't like Captain Obvious, right? GX8, let me look at that. Yeah. I would say get the GX8 because it's cheaper. Because $484, right? $500, $545, $400 is cheaper. So if I do Olympus PEN-F digital, you're talking double the price. And for all intents and purposes, I think the GX8 is probably a better camera. Well, better is very subjective, right? But it does have better video capabilities. So you did not mention that you want to do video for holidays, but I assume I just assume everybody's kind of a hybrid shooter. if you want to do video and photos, technically you'll be fine with either camera. But if you're just buying it for a very specific thing, meaning it's not going to get much use otherwise, get the GX8 because it's half the price. If you're buying it as your main camera, I would get the PEN-F all day long. In fact, I bought a second one because if this ever breaks down, I have another one as a backup that I can, use. Because this might get to the point where it's not repairable, right? Where it's not cost effective to fix it. So I bought a second one that's sitting in my dry box just in case this gets stolen, breaks, maybe I'll drop it. I don't know, anything can happen. But that's how much I like this camera. Is I got two, right? And the GX8 doesn't. I think you're fine either way. Why not save $500? Aperture and plus or minus. Okay. If you've done the full reset, right, and that did not fix it, there's only a couple other things you can try, right? Is make sure you got a fully charged OEM battery, not a generic. I mean, these are fringe things, right? They probably helped 0.5% of people out there. Like almost nobody this works, but this might work for you. And use a formatted SD card. Take a few pictures, and that might work. The other thing people suggest is leave the battery out of the camera for at least 24 hours, but maybe I would go to 48. You want to leave the battery out of the camera long enough so that when you go back into the camera, you have to reset the time and date. That means the camera is completely reset. That's the other thing is take the battery out for a couple days. When you turn it on and you have to set the time and date, then you know that you've drained the internal capacitor battery in the camera so that everything gets reset. The other thing is there is a back door into the menu, into the service menu, right? It's very similar to one of Robin Wong's video about how to check your shutter count on your camera. You're accessing the service menu in the camera, the factory service menu. There is a way to reset the camera completely to factory defaults in the service menu. And I'm talking, it's going to wipe out your copyright info. It's going, it's going to wipe the camera back to the original factory results. So it does more than just a full reset that you do through the menu system in the camera. You're going to have to dig a little bit, though. I don't know where. I think I found it on the Micro Four Thirds forum. Somewhere in there, there's a thread. Or you could just post a new thread and say, where's that other thread that shows you how to reset and go into the service menu and do a full, because I've done it before. And you get into the menu the same way you get into check shutter count, but there's other steps that will reset it completely. And that's what you need to look for. So that I would do as a last resort. But that's all I can say is leave the battery out for a few days, fully charge the battery, put it back in, try a formatted fresh memory card that you know works well, and then also the service menu. Sorry, I don't know the button sequence to do that, but it's not hard after you've done it a couple times. Oh, Lauren's here. How you doing, Lauren? I haven't looked at your latest album. You sent me an email yesterday or day before, but I'll check that out. Good to see you, though. What are the best resources for learning black and white conversion? What are your thoughts on monochrome sensor? Ha, it's tempting. Matty Salanto or Salanto blog just did an awesome video about the PEN-F monochrome that came out. And he covered a lot of the things about the advantages of a monochrome sensor, I think, really well. And I put it in my community tab as a recommended video to watch. Definitely check out that video because Matty has 50 years of experience shooting photography. I've only been doing this 9 years now. My God, but I'm an infant compared to him, right? And I think the gist of the conversation or his video was that monochromes have more dynamic range, better resolution. You have to watch clipping your highlights. But watch that if you haven't already. Now, that's about the monochrome sensor. If you're talking about converting black and white, that means you're converting from a color image, right, to black and white. And it's going to depend on what software you're using, what's the best way to learn black and white conversion, because it's all about the software. If you're only using OM Workspace, you have to select the camera profile, monochrome, and then use the tone curves. In my opinion, using tone curves is the best way to edit black and white images in Olympus Workspace. So if you know how to use the RGB tone curve, the red, green, and blue individual channel tone curves, that's the best way to edit them. And to learn how to do that, you're going to have to really look online at videos. So I don't have any specific resource except YouTube. That's where I learn 99% of what I do in photography is on YouTube. And a good channel, there's two good channels. If you use Photoshop, there's a guy called Pix Imperfect, P-I-X Imperfect. He has some excellent tutorials on how to do monochrome using Photoshop. So if you're a Photoshop user, he has an excellent tutorials on that. If you're using any other software, I don't know, because I use Photoshop and I use Photolab 6. I have a video on doing photo editing black and white conversion for Photolab 6, which is okay. I'm not I'm not like a super experienced guy, right? Or technical. I just do the best I can, right? To show people how to use their cameras, how to use software, how to take pictures, because there's a lot of people just starting out. They're here and I'm here, but there's a lot of people, way up here. So I can help people down in here and here. And then there'll be a few nuggets of things for people up here that they might find in my video. But 99% of what I do online, there's a whole group of photographers could care less, right? But they might find one nugget in one of my videos and say, I never knew that, right? But the other, like if it's a 10-minute video, like 9 minutes of it, they're like, you know what I mean? But yeah, so I have a video on Photolab 6, and there's some good tips in there that might apply universally across all software, like the tone curve. I did cover a little bit of the tone curve in that video. So those are the things I would look for. Photolab. And then the other really good resource. This is an excellent video from B&H from many years ago. Let me see if I can find this. This I'm going to recommend to everybody. If you're interested in black and white photography, it doesn't matter what software you use, but they talk a lot about converting black and white. And it was a B&H video. I'm going to see if I can find it. I've watched it a couple of times myself, but it's been probably a year since I've watched it last. B&H. Let me look. And it's a long ass video. It was like 2 hours. It's not that one. It's not that one. I think this is it. Okay, I'm going to put the link. I found it. Um, but this is the man. Why is it so big on your? Oh, because I got a 4K monitor now. Um, but this is the video. Seeing in black and white uh, with Eileen Rafferty. So that's the video. I would say that's. I'm going to put a link. I'm going to put a link in the chat. That is the best black and white video I ever seen. So B&H has some really good black and white video tutorials or event space type things where somebody that knows what they're doing sits and talks about it, and that's one of the best I've seen. I saw another one that's really old. It's 8 or 9 years old. I wouldn't go back that far because they're talking about software and things that forget about those. But this one is not that old. I don't know how old it was, but that's one of the best. Okay, so that's the best I can answer that question. uh, oh, Marco has a tip here regarding hard reset. Thank you. That's what it's called, a hard reset. Search my name, I guess Marco Chiappetta, and hard reset in any of the big Olympus Facebook groups I've posted. Thank you, Marco. He has it. Hey, Robin Wong is here. Oh my goodness, how you doing, Robin? When did you sneak in? The one of the happiest photographers on earth. I love Robin. Lauren says, I'm getting the GX. Oh, I'm betting the GX9 beat your PEN-F. I guarantee the GX9. I've never shot the GX9, but I can tell you the PEN-F is not any kind of focusing god. It's not a masterpiece when it comes to focusing. It's a little rough sometimes. And I've said this before that the GX, the PEN-F, let's say the OM1 is a 10 out of 10, right, for focusing, just to set a scale. And a manual focus lens being 0, right? I would say the second, the EM1 Mark III would be a 9 out of 10. The EM1 Mark II would be an 8 out of 10. And then the EM10 Mark II would be like a 7 out of 10. I would say this would be a 6 out of 10 on that scale. It's behind all of those other cameras when it comes to autofocusing. I don't know why. But when it comes to autofocusing, the PEN-F is probably, if you're talking about the Mark II series and higher, this is at the bottom of all of those. So against this contemporary Olympus bodies, the EM10 Mark II and this came out about the same time. From that perspective forward, this is the worst one when it comes to autofocus. That's not to say it's bad. It's better than probably everything that came out before this camera. And the cameras before this were very good, but this is the worst. So I'm not going to argue. If somebody says my camera focus is better than the PEN-F, you will not get any argument from me. But yeah, thanks for dropping in, Robin. It's good to see you. Yeah, the Pen PL8's kind of in the same vein. It's very good. The other Pen cameras are fine. I don't know what it is about the PEN-F. It's the sensor, obviously, the focusing array they put on the sensor, but yeah, I never break anything. Yeah, PEN-F is about the experience and the look, definitely. This was not a pragmatic choice for me, right? This was like I said, this was a gift to myself. But if you guys see me, this is the camera I take out all the time. Oh my God, I took the camera out. Let's see if I can find the picture. Somebody took a picture of me using this. I just wanted to show you guys. Here it is. Of course. Okay, that's not me. But let's see if I can move this around. Yeah, there I am. See me there? That's me with my PEN-F and the 40 to 150 kit lens. That is an amazing combination. That 40 to 150 kit, you know, the f4 to f5.6, that is a fabulous lens. I used it in an event because I was debating about buying what's it called? The Panasonic 35 to 100 f2.8 so I could shoot this event. Because it's not a lens. I don't have the 40 to 150 f2.8. And that's kind of big and bulky. That's the primary reason I've never bought that lens. But the Panasonic 35 to 100 is manageable, right? That's a lot smaller lens. And but I went to the event and I shot it with the 40 to 150 because it's, you know, it's one stop, maybe two stops difference, right? And it was low light. But I don't think I posted any photos from that on my Instagram. Let me see if I can find some in my folders here. And I need to pick a different screen for you guys. Let me move this so that I'm not constantly. Give me a second. But you're going to have to trust me on the fact that camera or that lens is amazing. I must have like the best copy of that lens ever made because not everybody has the same experience as I do. But if somebody asks me about that lens, I tell them just get it. It's like on sale for $120 all the time. And even at full price, I think it's only like $200. Even at $200, I would buy it, knowing what I know now. When it first came out, I was like, I got it with my EM10 Mark II because it was only $100 add-on to get it at the time when I bought my EM10. And you know, I never gave that lens much credit until I started using it a lot. And now, at this point, I just don't see a need to even get the Panasonic 35 to 100 because now we have DxO, right, to reduce noise. So even if I'm losing a stop or even two stops, depending how far I zoom out, I don't worry about it anymore because of the denoising software that we have now. So you know, But I'm saying that without having ever used the 40 to 150 f2.8 or the Panasonic 35 to 100. But I have used um, my 12 to 40 Pro. I've used my 75 f1.8. Both are probably, the sharpest lenses, that you can get for micro four thirds. And that 40 to 150, in my opinion, holds its own against those lenses. Okay, in my opinion. It's just the light gathering, right? It's an f4. It's not a 2.8, which is a big deal. Okay, I'm almost there. I'm going to find this folder now. I just want to show you a couple pictures I got, which were amazing. And it's funny, they were a lot of them I shot in JPEG because I didn't look at my settings. So I shot like half the event in JPEG before I realized. I said, God damn it. Excuse my language. I was like, damn, it's like, how am I shooting in JPEG? Why am I not shooting in RAW? But it didn't really matter. The images came out great anyway, amazingly. But it'd been nice to have the RAWs. What the hell folder is it in? It's got to be one of my client folders. Now you see that the weak link in a hierarchy type organization system is you got to remember how you organize things. And so the weak link is back to me again, even though it's a great system. I did not put it in under clients. All right, so it's probably just an Instagram because I did deliver some. Here they are. All right. For whatever reason, it was in my Instagram folder. I guess I was thinking about posting these. Now, all right. Now I just hid the screen to switch over to the monitor. So give me a second. I have to swap monitors now. There we go. So all right. But yeah, these came out amazing. And if I zoom in, this was at like ISO, God, probably, let me see. This was at ISO 800, but this was a JPEG shot. I did not shoot this in but there, let's see another image. I mean, my God, look at that. It's just freaking amazing how clean. This is the 40 to 150 kit lens. All the detail and everything in here. And this was at this one was at ISO 400. How did I manage that? Look at my shutter speed. 1/250. Oh, because I'm at 1/250th f4.4. So these were scenes with good light, but I know that some of these images didn't have great light. Let me see this one. This one was ISO 2000. And this was a JPEG. I don't think this was a raw image originally. But I'm sitting, second, third row in the theater, and I just cannot believe. Can I zoom in a different way? Because I know when you get onto YouTube, it's hard to see sometimes the details. And this image is cropped too a little bit, mostly on the sides, but man. Let's see, what's another one? This was a good shot. I mean, it's a little bit it's a little soft because, the JPEG, I did, the JPEG was set to standard noise reduction because I don't worry about the JPEG settings, because I just assume I'm shooting in RAW. And I'm like, damn it. I was so pissed when I got home and I'm like, why are these all JPEGs? How could I make a mistake like that? But anyhow, that 40 to 150, why am I talking about that lens? I can't remember, but that's a great lens. And that lens combined with using DxO, I just don't see a need to drop $1,000 or whatever on an f2.8 lens at this point, because I can sharpen and denoise to a point that for the stuff that I deliver to a client, okay, because I deliver 1080p or 1920 by 1080 to a client. That's what I deliver, right? Because they're just posting it on the web. They don't want these huge 20 megapixel files. They just want something that they can drag and drop and put onto their website. That's my client base. They just all put things on the web, which is probably 99% of most people's clients, I would think. Well, that's not true. A lot, some people have good clients that pay a lot of money, right? Not like me. I get paid pennies. But they whatchamacallit, they print on billboards or posters, or they put in magazines. I'd like to get some of that work on the architectural side, doing architectural photography where, somebody's doing kitchen remodeling, for example, and they want professional photos of the remodeled kitchen, right? Which is very different than doing commercial properties and real estate. It's a little bit different because you got to show different features of the remodeling, right? Not just a wide shot of the room. You need to see the fine details, right? Like how they put the trim and molding in certain places, and special features that might be on the counter, stuff like that. But anyway, let's see. Oh, thanks, Hussein. I appreciate that. I try. Yeah, $2,200 for a monochrome. It's tempting though, just to have something different, right? Because I got all different kinds of cameras, not just Olympus stuff. This is my go-to 99% of the time. But just shoot them. Because I looked at converting like one of my older cameras to monochrome, and it cost like $1,000. So I'm like, $1,000 and I got a jacked up camera? I don't think so. I'd rather just buy like Pentax monochrome, maybe in a year, if I can hold out. I got gas so bad right now, you have no idea. No idea how bad my gas is right now. But I'm holding back because I just finally, after a year, I finally paid off this all-in-one. So my credit card balance is like $100 now because you put a tank of gas in, you're at $100. But I finally paid that thing off, and I'm like, now I'm itching. I'm itching to rack up my credit card again. Yeah, trade my car for a full Leica monochrome. I don't think so. Oh, and this is in reference to the B&H video, Eileen Rafferty. I'd like to meet her someday. She looks like a fun person to hang out with. And Rick is here. How you doing, Rick? Good to see you. And Jeanette Newman. Oh my goodness, Jeanette is here too. How are you, Jeanette? What time is it anyway? Man, it's almost 12 o'clock. Time flies when you're having fun, right? And Lauren says, fast focusing for me is essential. I use single area focus with auto. Yeah. Yeah. If they come out with a PEN-F2, man, that thing better focus like, like the OM1 or the EM1 Mark III. I'd be happy with a PEN-F2 that had EM1 Mark III gut, electronics, just like the OM5. Like if they took the OM5 and converted it to a PEN-F, I'd be pretty happy with that. But I'd be even happier if it was OM1 type, sensor and hardware inside. Uh, if it, but no matter what they put in it, if they put the EM1 Mark III inside or if they put the OM1 inside, I would buy it either way, because it's just, I don't know. I'm just vain, I guess, because there's cosmetic. It's just a purely a, a, a vanity choice. There's nothing practically better about that camera than really any other camera, in my opinion. Does anyone know if you can save custom settings to a computer and then put them back on your camera after? Yes, you can do that. You use Olympus OM Workspace and plug your camera into the computer and then save it to your computer using OM Workspace. And JM has a quick question. I have an OMD EM10 Mark III. Can I follow your tutorials for the most part? The only exceptions would be like when I talk about doing my sets, which are custom settings. Those don't apply to the EM10 Mark III. The EM10 Mark III also has an additional menu, I believe, like for advanced photography. The EM10 Mark II didn't have that, but probably 90% of those videos do apply to the EM10 Mark III. And wow, John is content with his JPEGs too. I mean, to be honest, if RAW was not offered, well, let's say, because I have a choice between RAW and J, I was a little worried on site about shooting in that I got through most of the event shooting in JPEG, and then I did get to RAW eventually, so I do have some images in RAW. I was a little worried because it was, how it is indoor events, right? The lighting is not great a lot of the times, and I couldn't use flash. I mean, an on-camera flash would just not reach the stage from where I was, standing. I was able to move around, but I could not, even if I was right up on the stage with a flash, at that point you're distracting the performance, right? And if I was in the audience with flash, that wouldn't distract the performance. But at that point, the flash is not going to have the kind of reach to make any difference anyway. You're just, draining batteries. But I was worried on site because I was thinking I'd have to shoot, because you saw I had one of those images where at ISO 2000. I was a little worried because I was using a kit lens at f4, f5.6. I was worried, and I knew if I had RAWs, I could process them in DxO because DxO only processes RAWs. So I don't worry about high ISO so much anymore because of that. But man, when I saw I was in JPEG, I kind of panicked a little bit. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to deliver some crap, but it turned out okay. I was just so amazed. Oh, thank you, Lauren. I guess we're talking about those dance shots that I did. Yeah, I really like those. Those came out well. And yeah, Randy, how you doing, Randy? Randy's in. I know it's like I'm only really doing the live streams once a month right now. It's been 4 months now that I've only been doing once a month. Uh, so this I guess is only really my fourth live stream, not counting the annual one. Uh, because like I said, I'm trying to shift back to doing tutorials and stuff. Yeah, Lauren's wondering about Fuji. I don't know if Fuji will do monochrome because Fuji's all about their film simulations, right? And if you make a monochrome camera, I don't know. Ricoh maybe because they have the sensor now in the K3. They could just put that sensor in a GRX or whatever that thing's called. Yeah, GR3. I don't get the fascination with that camera. I don't get it. I mean, Maddie seems to love that freaking thing. Robin was not a big fan, right, because of the autofocusing. And I'll see, because I watch Maddie's video, now I'm getting thumbnails or pop-ups for other GR3 videos. So it seems like it's pretty popular. Uh, but I just can't deal with no viewfinder. I'm like, I think Peter Forsgaard mentioned that because he's looking. I guess that was big news this month, right? Peter let his contract expire. Um, but he was not a fan because the lack of the G. But when I was shopping for a pocketable camera like a GR3, right? That was definitely on a short list until I realized there was no viewfinder, and I was like, "Wow, that really ruled it out for me." That was the deal breaker on that camera for me, um, and the fact it was like $1,000. So I think I ended up with my TG5. Believe it or not, that is my pocket camera. I know there's no viewfinder, but that's really uh, it's okay with that kind of camera, and it's durable. It's weather sealed. It's waterproof. It's not just weather sealed, it's waterproof, right? And it was less than half the cost of the Ricoh GR. And I knew how to use all the features. It had focus stacking. It has the live com. It doesn't have live com. I can't remember. It definitely has focus stacking and macro and a set. I like the TG5. I haven't taken that out in a while. I should take that out. And let me see if I can get to a couple questions before I wrap up here. Rob, I have an EM5 Mark III. What would be the next best body upgrade? EM1 Mark III or OM1? Yeah. The EM1 Mark III, really what you're gaining is better face detect, slightly better autofocus, and image quality. I mean, so marginal. You splitting hairs. This doesn't really count. If you have any skill at all, it's not going to make any difference in your photography. I mean, if you have no skill at photography, yeah, EM1 Mark III, you're going to get better images. But if you have any skill at all, there's no difference in image quality between the two cameras. The autofocus is much better face detect though. That is significantly better on the EM1 Mark III. So if that's important, upgrading to the EM1 Mark III for the face detect makes sense. Battery life, obviously, much bigger battery, and the dual memory card slot. So those things are pretty significant if those things matter to you. But the OM1 is significant. It's just like in a different league from the EM1 Mark III. And I'm not talking about image quality because, again, if you have any skill at all as a photographer, the image quality, the difference between the two cameras is nothing, right? um, but And a lot of the software, DxO, for example, mitigates the differences almost completely. There's exceptions on the fringe type photography, like astrophotography. OM1 is going to give you better results than the EM1. Regardless of your processing, you're going to get better results, right? Uh, that's just, and there's probably many other examples. That's just the one that comes to mind. But the OM1 will expand your photography in ways that the EM1 Mark III cannot. But specifically the wildlife, birding, sports action type photography, the high speed capture, SH1 at 120 frames per second. You can take the OM1 a lot further in your photography than you can the EM1 Mark III. But I cannot say the same for upgrading from an EM5 Mark III to an EM1 Mark III. Because the EM5 Mark III is a very capable camera, and that's why I still have it. I'm tempted to trade it sometimes because the OM5 has the Starry Sky AF. But aside from that, there's no reason for me to get an OM5 because the M5 Mark III is perfectly fine. So I'm not doing it. I'm going to wait for something else. But anyhow, that said, there is some talk about like an OM3, something in between the OM5 and the OM1. That would be an awesome. If you can wait, maybe wait for that. I don't know if that's true or not, but there was some discussion about that in one of the interviews that I read with OM Systems. So just imagine like a $1,500 camera, because the OM5's $1,000, the OM1's $2,000. If they have one at $1,500, that's mostly OM1, but a little bit OM5. Anyway. That would be cool, but yeah, I would not upgrade to the M1 Mark III unless battery life, dual card slot, and face detect are, at the top of your list of important things about a camera. Those things are very good, and I would argue that the face detect in the EM1 Mark III is just as good as the OM1. I don't have my EM1 Mark III anymore to compare side by side, but I think there's an argument to be made that the M1 Mark III autofocusing system is, in terms of face detect, is just as good, but it does not have the sports wildlife capability of bird detect, animal detect, and the shutter speed's about half, and it doesn't have 4K 60. I mean, there's a lot of things about the OM1 that I would skip the M1 Mark III. Oh, that's interesting. Fujians have begged for mono. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So if they haven't done it by now, they probably will never will. Oh, and the GR has no tilting screen either, right? That wouldn't be a big deal for me if it had the. But I was looking at like the Panasonic LX2, LX100 version 2. That's a very compelling camera in my opinion. What do you think about the EPL10 as a first camera? Um, and this will be my last question. And well, if there's one more, I'll take it. But um, I would say it depends on okay, well, let me not qualify it at all. You have to be able to live with the no viewfinder, right? There's no viewfinder. So that would be the deal breaker for me. If it's going to be my first camera, if I were starting over again, not having a viewfinder is a big deal. That's a key deal breaker. The other things I would say is that there are much better choices at that price point. EM10 Mark IV. But if you're since I think that camera's been discontinued. Ironically, the EPL7 is still for being made, but the EPL10 has been discontinued, from what I've read, if I remember correctly. But yeah, the no viewfinder is a big deal. So I would skip it altogether and not recommend it as a first camera, because a viewfinder in photography, you know, definitely is it's I think it's critical, you know. If you're serious about photography, you just want to capture images and just have some fun, uh, maybe that's not a big deal. But if you want to ever get serious about take your photography seriously, you need to have a viewfinder, in my opinion. And I think the very best first camera would probably be EM10 Mark II or EM5 Mark II. If you can find a mint copy online, a used one in mint condition, for about half the price of just about anything new, that would be my recommendation as a first camera. Those are excellent cameras. You know, money no object. OM1 should be your first camera ever. But if you're talking about EPL10, there's better choices, in my opinion, to get a viewfinder. If you don't care about the viewfinder, if that's not a deal breaker, right, then EPL10 is fine. But I'd still say there are better choices. What would that be, for example? I would say even an EPL7. EPL7 is an excellent camera. You know, I don't see a need to pay more for a camera that does a little bit less, right? So I would go back EPL7, EPL8 is really good. I have an EPL8. I loved it until I broke it. It kind of works still, but anyway. This is true. The G95 from Panasonic, and it comes with, I think, a 12 to 60 kit. That's a smoking deal. I probably recommend that over maybe even an EM10 Mark IV. The form factor is a little bit different. It has like a deeper grip, and so if you're content with the form factor, I think the choice between EM10 Mark IV and G95, let's say they're the same price, all things being equal, the only difference is really the form factor. And the G95 is going to offer better video probably, but I think we're kind of splitting hairs at these entry-level cameras. Just pick the one that you like that looks better when you're talking about G95 versus an entry-level OM10. And by the way, the EM10s I think are going to go disappear. They're not going to continue that line either, according to the interview that I saw. The pen line pretty much out, because the argument is, what is an entry-level camera anymore? It's your cell phone. Entry-level camera. People are not going to buy a camera entry level, because that line is blurred to the point to where it's, you know, people are just going to use their cell phone. As you can do so much more with a cell phone within its lens and sensor ability, but they squeeze every single ounce out of that sensor, right? Out of that tiny little sensor in the cell phone, they squeeze a hell of a lot out of that. And that goes back to my earlier conversation about the OM1, or OM systems, I should say, trying to squeeze every little bit out they can out of a 20 mega out of a sensor, regardless of megapixel. They want to squeeze as much as they can out of it. Not that they're trying to extend the life of 20 megapixels, but if they find that going to 33 megapixels compromises the image quality, they're not going to go in that direction, because look what you can do with a tiny little sensor in a cell phone, right? So EM10 is gone. Pen series probably going with it, etc. Yeah, I've heard that, Marco. The EP10 was one of the best-selling cameras, if not the best in Japan. But what I understand is that the European market is OM Systems' biggest market, not the USA. Apparently, they sell more cameras in the European market than they do anywhere else in the world. And again, this is from something I read. I wish I could point you to the article directly. But if you search, interview with OM Systems, the Image Ring resource or one of those other vlogs will come up, websites will come up, and you'll be able to read it for yourself. Might even been on DP Review before they kind of shut down. If they're shut down, I don't know. I think their site's still up, but where was I going? What was I talking about? We were talking about the EP10. I don't even know why I'm talking about it anymore. I was referring to that article for something other than them talking about discontinuing cameras. Oh well. The Canon R10 or lower, a new mount which might be around as same as yeah, the R10 is tempting me a little bit because I have an M50. And today's the last day of the sale. It's like $899 with a lens, and I can trade in my Canon M50 for $300, and I'd only pay what, $699, and then I'd have a modern Canon. But then I think I've taken my M50 out once in the 2 years I've had it, if not longer, and that was when I first got it, and that was it. So I think the Canon R10 would have the same fate in that I'd take it out once and then that would be it. So I'm like, I think I'll just keep the M50. The problem is, I get offers from vendors to get lenses and things, and they don't always come in Micro Four Thirds. They'll come in other camera mounts. Canon, maybe not as much in the future, but Canon is one of the choices usually. Fuji's another choice, Nikon Z mount. So I don't have the Z mount. I don't have the Canon mount, but I do have, the Canon RF, the Nikon Z, but I do have the Leica L for my Panasonic, and I have the Fujifilm X. Those two are, the Fujifilm X, there's a lot of cameras that do have Fujifilm X mounts. A lot of lens companies make it for Fuji, but not as much as Canon sometimes. So, when I think about getting a new camera outside of the Micro Four Thirds system, my thought process is, who can I get some free lenses from? Because I do those, you get those reviews online, right? Like Jimmy just did one on the Yongnuo. I don't know if they sent that to him for free or not. I didn't watch the video yet. But my thought process is if I get this camera, I won't have to buy really any lenses for it because I'll get them from somewhere, right? Somebody will send me one to review. But I haven't gotten any offers recently for the Micro Four Thirds stuff, but I do get offers for Nikon Z, Canon, and Fuji. Like I did that UFO lens recently. Anyway, yeah, the Nikon Z at $999, that tempted me slightly. Very, 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 very slightly. But it has, it's not just the autofocusing system, which, is the consensus is, I can't tell from experience, but the consensus is not as good as Canon. And it had some other limitation on one of the features that I found a little disturbing. I can't remember what it was. I think it had something to do with the the long exposure settings, something to do with that it did not do well or did not do at all. There was something about that. I can't remember what it was, but after I saw that video, I ruled out the Nikon Z5 because I was like, I'll never be able to use it for whatever it was that it couldn't do. And and let me qualify this by, when I'm looking at new cameras, right, that are outside of Micro Four Thirds, deal breakers are very easy to come by, right? It's like, because I'm not that interested in those systems. So if it doesn't do one little thing, it's a deal breaker. I'm like, screw it. You know what I mean? I don't need it that bad. If it doesn't do everything I want at a at a next to nothing price, like the Z5, that's nothing for a full frame camera. But it didn't do one little thing, and I'm like, you know, why bother? So deal breakers are very easy to break. That threshold is very low at that point. Now in a Micro Four Thirds camera, even though I'm a fanboy, right, and I love Micro Four Thirds and I'll buy just about anything, my threshold is pretty high. Meaning, it there's it does everything I need, and for me not to buy a Micro Four Thirds camera, it has to be a pretty significant deficiency in my workflow. Like if it does not have an EVF, that's a deal breaker for me, right? I'm not going to buy that camera, most likely, unless it did something else that would offset that. Uh, but when it comes to other mounts, full frame, APS-C, whatever brand, the threshold for deal breaker is pretty low. I mean, it could be like, this button is in the wrong place, I ain't buying it. You know what I mean? But a Micro Four Thirds system camera, my threshold's really high. It has to have some significant deficiency, that, and like I said, EVF is the only one that comes to mind offhand. If it doesn't have an EVF, because like this camera has an EVF, but the autofocus sucks, right? If I were to buy an APS-C or full frame camera with autofocus like this, no freaking way, But for me, Micro Four Thirds system, the fact that the autofocus on this is not great is not a deal breaker for me, right? Like it is for Lauren. Lauren, he won't buy this camera because AF is really important to him. But for me, that's not a deal breaker on this camera, right? For the way I use it. Anyway, all right. Oh, thank you, Roger. Thank you so much. You guys, your support is so greatly appreciated. I tell you that, because there's a little bit of ad revenue that comes in from YouTube, but when I get donations and support like that, and thanks to everyone that's bought me coffees or made donations, or actually there's a way to do monthly things too. Oh man, it just what's the word I'm looking for? See, when I'm live, my vocabulary, I forget the entire English language sometimes. But it is so appreciated. It shows that what I'm doing is helping you, right, in one form or another. And if ad revenue is the only thing I made off YouTube, I probably not do it, because it's just not. There's not much there. It's not rewarding at all, financially speaking. And God, there's a simple word for me that I can't remember, but it definitely it validates what I'm doing. That's what it validates what I'm doing by seeing contributions, either coffee or donation links from everyone. Uh, that I'm, because it I don't have a Patreon or subscription model, right? Because my thinking is, because I know a lot of people do, they have like, subscription models and things. My thinking about this is that I'm always trying to do my best, right? When I publish a video. I don't know what more I could offer to a subscriber base, you know? It's like, because if I'm going on YouTube and I'm not delivering my best, but I'm saving that for subscribers, that just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, how would I distinguish between what subscribers get versus what I just publish on YouTube? Because I always have to do my best. And, a lot of times my videos aren't great. They are what they are, because believe me, I get criticism for my videos, obviously, right? Because you can't have thin skin if you're going to be on YouTube. But, man, I got some criticism in a forum a couple weeks back. Kind of annoyed me a little bit. I don't get annoyed easily, but I was annoyed. But they were criticizing my bird photography, saying that I crop in like 80% of the time. And I'm like, well, my video wasn't really about bird photography. It was about settings to do bird photography, but it's not like I ever claimed to be a bird photographer, or I don't tell people how to get good bird photography shots. I tell you how to use your camera so that you might be able to get good bird photography. You know what I anyhow, all right, guys. Thanks so much again. Everyone has been pretty awesome. Thank you so much for the super chats, the coffees and donations. Like I said, they validate what I do and help me to continue making videos. Like I say in my videos, thank you so much. It helps me to continue making videos like this, and they're greatly appreciated. You guys have a great rest of your weekend. Look forward to some more tutorial videos, and I'll do some more photo walks too with the composition like you guys were asking for. And I hope to see you guys. I'll do another live stream next month. Usually I try to do it towards the end of the month, the third or fourth weekend. So look for it then. Thanks again. I'm still here. Hold on. There's the button. Forgot where the button is. It's been so long.